Hi there, welcome back. So I've been doing some videos on grammar and I thought I can't possibly do any more grammar videos before I do one on commas. They are something which so many people talk about as adults. Things like apostrophes are also very common, that people disagree over how you use them, whether you should even bother, whether it matters. In the real world, it probably doesn't particularly matter. It doesn't really matter if you make a mistake. But for children at school, it does matter because we're expecting them to be able to get it right. And, when they do their SATs, they're expected to know and they're expected to be able to use them properly. So although we as adults maybe don't think they're all that important and it's fine to sort of do your own thing with it, there are sort of ways and rules that we should follow. So that's what I'm going to go over here. So I'm going to start by telling you ways that we can use commas, some of the common ways. I'll go over those fairly quickly. And then I'm going to talk about how not to use commas, because that's probably more of a problem than how to use them correctly. Firstly then, commas need to be used if we're addressing someone. So instead of let's eat grandma, we can have let's eat grandma. Kids love this funny example, they use it a lot. We also use commas in complex sentences. Look at my complex sentence video if you're not sure about these. So they would come after what we call the dependent or the subordinate clause. So even though I was full, comma, I kept on eating. If I switch this sentence around and had the even though I was full at the end, I wouldn't need that comma anymore. So I could say I kept on eating even though I was full. So in that sense, I wouldn't need a comma. Have a look at my complex sentence video for more information. We also need a comma if we're going to be using an adverbial phrase at the start of a sentence. Something like before school, comma, I brushed my hair. I talk about this more in depth on the adverbial phrases video. Commas in compound sentences are optional. Again, look at my compound sentence video. They could come before the coordinating conjunction. It's called the Oxford comma. Some people use it, some people don't. And finally, commas are necessary in a list, but not before the last item. So we say and before the last item, and in that case there's no comma. And then we also use commas to mark speech punctuation. And speech punctuation is actually surprisingly complex, so I'll do a whole other video on that another time. Okay, let's look at some common errors then. So this is what we call a comma splice. It's a comma used when it should be a full stop. All of these sentences are separate sentences, but they've had a comma to separate them because they would flow together. It was nearly all over. Messi had the ball and passed it. He shot, he scored. It's a way of keeping up the pace. But really, something like this, an ellipsis, a dot dot dot, or a full stop, or an exclamation mark to add excitement, that is what is grammatically correct. Using commas feels like it's keeping up the pace well, but it's not actually correct. If you look at my sentence structure video, you'll see how it is that we form a proper sentence and how children can see what is a sentence and what is not. And if you do that with this, you'll see that these are all separate they are all separate sentences, so commas are not okay to split them up. It's really important that children understand that for their own writing. Here we have something like, don't swim in the river, there are crocodiles in it. Same again. They're two separate sentences, but in this case, it's not necessarily pace. It's about the fact that these two sentences flow together. So often, children and adults indeed will want to keep them flowing. So they use a comma, thinking that, oh, it's just a small pause. However, there are other ways of showing that they're separate sentences or separate clauses, but actually keeping yourself from doing a comma splice. Something like this. A dash, that works really, really well. Or you could use a semicolon. I'll come on to those in another video. Another way of doing it is to use a joining word. We call those conjunctions. So for example, I could join these two parts of the sentence together to say, don't swim in the river because there are crocodiles in it. Either of those ways are fine, apart from the first one where it's a comma. It mustn't be a comma because they are two separate sentences. We can join them in different ways, but we mustn't use a comma. Again, it's really important that children understand that for their own writing. Otherwise, they may use commas when they're meant to use full stops. So there you are. I hope that made some sense. In brief, commas can be used for lots of different reasons. They can be used to separate clauses in sentences. Check out the complex sentence video to see that in more detail. They can be used to signify adverbial phrases, again, look at that video if you want more information. They can be used in a list. They are an important part of speech punctuation. So they have loads of purposes, but the one thing they must not do is replace a full stop or come to divide sentences. It's a really common error. Like I said, it will haunt you. You'll see it everywhere. There's sort of the comma splice, as it's known, and it really is probably the biggest mistake that children make all the way up through primary school and going on into their adult lives. So if you're working with this on your children, that's the one thing to really, really watch out for. As always, please like and comment and share my videos. I'd really like to get the word out. I'd like other people to be able to use these. So if you've benefited, please let other people know. And also get in touch and tell me what I can do more videos on for you, because I will do my best to help you with anything that you would like help with. Thank you very much. Bye.